You know exactly what you want to say. You have reviewed the information, you understand the problem, and you have a clear recommendation. But when it's time to speak, especially in a high stakes conversation, something changes. You say, um, I was just thinking that maybe, or I don't know, but perhaps we could. You might add a nervous laugh when nothing is funny, or you add an inflection at the end, making your recommendation sound like a question. And suddenly, the certainty you felt inside is no longer what other people experience. And this may not be a confidence problem. You may be unconsciously cushioning your authority so that other people don't feel like you're coming on too strong. By the end of this video, you'll understand why changing your words isn't always enough and how grounding yourself in the right identity before an important conversation can change your words, your voice, and even the nonverbal signals surrounding your message. Hi, I'm Kim Welcome. I'm a leadership communication expert, and for 18 years, I've coached professionals and leaders to communicate with greater clarity, authority, and influence. And this channel is for women whose professional value may have increased faster than the way they communicated, because you can be highly capable and still over explain. You can have authority and still unconsciously give some of it away. And you can be respected for getting things done without being sought out for your judgment. Here we work on the communication habits and the identity underneath them that help your perceived value catch up with the value you already bring. Now let's talk about what happens when the words coming out of your mouth don't fully reflect the authority you actually have. Imagine a woman sitting in a leadership meeting. She has identified a serious risk in the project timeline. She knows the team needs to address it before moving forward. But instead of saying, my recommendation is that we delay the launch by 2 weeks so we can resolve these issues. She says, I don't know. I was just thinking that maybe we might want to consider pushing the launch back a little bit. Then she gives a small laugh and looks around the room to see how everyone is responding. Her analysis may be completely sound, but the room isn't only listening to her analysis. They are also receiving the hesitation, the tentative language, and the nervous laugh and the expression on her face. People are not only listening to your message, they are reading your relationship with your own message. Do you appear to trust what you're saying? Do you seem prepared to stand behind your recommendation? Or does the delivery suggest that you need the room's permission before you believe your own point? Now, I want to be very clear. Women do not develop these habits in a vacuum. Many women have learned through experience, especially women of color, that direct communication may be interpreted differently when it comes from them. A man may be described as decisive, while a woman communicating in the same way may be called aggressive, difficult, or intimidating. So softening can become an intelligent adaptation. It can help us maintain relationships, avoid conflicts and unnecessary resistance, and make our ideas more socially acceptable. But a habit that once helped you navigate the environment may eventually begin to diminish the authority you need at your current level. And the softening doesn't always appear in the sentence itself. Sometimes we soften the space around the sentence. We use what I call verbal viruses. These may be words and sounds such as, I mean, kind of, sort of, or maybe. They can also include a nervous laugh or a little chuckle after making a perfectly reasonable statement. Now, everyone uses filler words occasionally, and that is not the problem. You do not need to speak like a robot to sound authoritative. The question is, when do these verbal viruses appear? Do they become more pronounced when you're disagreeing with someone, when you are speaking to a senior leader, when you're setting a boundary, when you're discussing your value, or when you're making a recommendation that other people may not want to hear? If the habit consistently appears when you are exercising authority, it may be doing more than filling a silence. It may be cushioning your power. And I want to be honest. I sometimes catch myself doing this too. It can happen in high stakes conversations. I may know exactly what I think. I may be completely certain of the value I bring, but occasionally I can hear myself adding a small laugh or cushioning the end of the statement. That is an important reminder for me. These habits are not always evidence that we lack knowledge, competence, or even confidence. Sometimes we don't soften because we are uncertain about what we're saying. We soften because we cannot control how the other person will respond. And that brings us to the deeper issue here. You can learn to remove just from your sentences. You can replace maybe we could with I recommend. You can practice lowering your voice at the end of a statement. Those are valuable communication techniques. But if you still enter that conversation experiencing yourself as someone who needs approval, the uncertainty will often find another way out. You may use stronger words while smiling apologetically. You may make a direct recommendation and immediately over explain it. You may deliver your point clearly and then look around the room for reassurance. Your words may say, "This is my recommendation," but your face, your voice, your body may still be asking, "Is it okay for me to say this?" That's why technique alone is not enough. Before you decide what you're going to say, decide who you are when you say it. Let's say you're preparing to present a recommendation to senior leadership. If you enter the room thinking, "I hope they think I'm smart," or "I need to convince them that I know what I'm doing," or "I cannot afford for them to reject this idea," then you have unconsciously placed everyone else in the role of evaluator. You are no longer contributing your expertise. You are auditioning for their approval. And once you experience yourself as the person being evaluated, your communication may begin asking for permission. But what changes if you enter the room with a different understanding of your role? Like, "I am the professional who has studied this issue," or "I am the leader responsible for identifying this risk," or "I'm the expert helping this team make a well-informed decision." Now, you are not there to prove that you deserve to be in the conversation. You are there to perform the role you already earned. This doesn't mean believing that you're always right, because authority is not arrogance. You can be grounded in your expertise and remain open to new information. You can make clear recommendations and still listen. You can disagree without becoming defensive. You are not deciding that your opinion is more valuable than everyone else's. You are deciding that your contribution does not need to be diminished before other people are allowed to consider it. So, before your next conversation, take a moment and ask yourself 3 questions. First, who am I making the other person in this conversation? Have you made them the authority over your value? Are they the person who gets to decide whether you're intelligent enough, experienced enough, or worthy of being heard? Or are they a colleague, stakeholder, or decision maker with whom you are working to address a problem? Second, who do I need to be in this conversation? Not a performance, not a character, not a louder or more aggressive voice or version of yourself. What is the role you are actually there to perform? Are you the leader, providing direction, the advisor, identifying risk, the expert, offering informed guidance, the professional, setting up a necessary boundary? Name the role before you enter the room. Third, what does this conversation require from me? Perhaps it requires clarity. Perhaps it requires courage. Perhaps it requires you to make a recommendation and then stop talking. Perhaps it requires you to allow a moment of silence without filling it with explanations or laughter or qualifiers. Grounding yourself in your identity does not mean trying to control every movement of your face or eliminating every In fact, obsessively monitoring yourself can make you even more self-conscious, and we don't want that. The goal is alignment. Your identity, your message, and your delivery should be telling the same story. When you know who you are in the conversation, your words have somewhere solid to come from. You no longer need to micromanage every facial expression because you are not trying to manufacture authority from the outside. You are communicating an authority you already have acknowledged within yourself. So the next time you hear yourself softening a strong point, don't simply criticize the word or the nervous laugh. Get curious. Ask yourself, what was I believing about myself in that moment? Whose permission was I trying to secure? What role had I unconsciously assigned to the other person? Then return to the identity that serves the conversation. I am the leader providing necessary direction, or I'm the expert helping to solve this problem, or I'm the professional making a considered recommendation. And then say what the moment requires clearly, calmly, and without apologizing for the authority you already have. Because communication is the skill, identity is the power. Now, I want to hear from you. Where do you notice yourself softening your communication most? When you're speaking to senior leaders, disagreeing, setting up a boundary, or making a recommendation? Tell me in the comments. Your answer may help another woman recognize a pattern she hasn't yet been able to name. And if you're doing senior level work, but you're not being seen, heard, or treated at that level, subscribe. That is exactly what we work on here. See you next week.